Hi, I'm Dan Clark and I'm one of the product managers here at Simon. And I'm here to talk to you about Hilscher ultrasonic processors. Today, we're going to be covering 5 tips and tricks to help you maximize the processing ability of your Hilscher ultrasound unit. Tip 1. Ultrasound is very good at mixing solids, liquids, oils and waters, and homogenizing, but it's not perfect. If you have solids, if you have particles of sufficient size, they will drop out of solution if you are relying purely on the ultrasound to keep things floating and mixing. If you're using a larger volume, maybe 2 liters and above, consider using an overhead stirrer as well as a probe to keep things mixed, keep things moving. Your material will experience a lot more ultrasound and you'll get a far more efficient processing. Tip and trick number 2 is if you are working with solids, you may be dispersing them, you may be extracting something, but try to keep those particles and the solids that you are suspending or extracting with your Hilscher ultrasound to the minimal size possible. Smaller particles have a larger surface area. A larger surface area can be exposed to more cavitation and more ultrasound, and that will enormously speed up the processing time that you have to subject your liquid in your material to ultrasound. Tip or trick number 3, it's all about controlling the heat. Ultrasound puts heat into a system. Sadly, we can't avoid it. That is just the nature of cavitation. When that sonication bubble explodes, it emits energy, it emits heat, and over time, you see a temperature rise in your liquid. To some people, that's a good thing. To others, heat is not the friend of their material or their process. If you need to keep heat away from this system, consider 2 things. 1, using the cycle mode on the instrument. Think of it as a pulse mode that turns the instrument on and off, so you lower the overall intensity of your process. It will help to prevent that temperature buildup. Secondly, consider a method of cooling. A simple ice bath around your beaker will help to wick away any of that heat that is unwanted that can be generated from ultrasound. Tip and trick number 4, begin with an appropriate small scale. It's really tempting if you're using ultrasound as part of your production, part of your lab process, to immediately want to leap to producing large volumes. I'm here to suggest start small. Be certain about what you're doing. Practice on a small scale. Don't waste more material than you have to. If you can perfect what you're doing on a small volume first, believe me, if we optimize it on that small scale, it becomes so much easier to scale up from there. With ultrasound, you've got to walk before you can run, but that's why we're here to help. Tip and trick number 5 is choose a probe that is appropriate for the job that you're wanting to do. Here's a good example. We have 2 probes here. We have a 40mm probe. That's pretty big. If we put 400 watts of energy from this system through this probe, it spreads it out over that 40 millimeters. In other words, we generate a power density based on the power and the size of this probe. This is a much smaller 7mm needle probe. If I put the same 400 watts of power through an area that is just 7mm compared to 40mm, I'm going to have a higher power density. So what does that mean in terms of processing? Well, if I'm wanting to mix and disperse a large volume of liquid, this is the right probe to use. Why? We capture a larger volume, we're going to have more efficient mixing, and quite frankly, mixing doesn't require a high ultrasound intensity. However, if I am wanting to reduce particle sizes of my solids, I'm wanting to extract and break open cell walls and extract organic oils and materials from it, I'm going to need a bit more oomph than a widespread low intensity probe like this big fat 40mm one. That's when I want to use the needle probe. Think about it. If I gave you a block of ice and I said, can you break some ice up for me from a drink? You'd say, sure, hammer the ice pick. You'd take a big swing, plenty of energy, and you'd concentrate that energy through a small tip. Works just the same with ultrasound. For particle disintegration, deagglomeration, cell breaking for extraction, use a needle probe. High intensity, that's how you do it. That's how you extract. If, however, you want to emulsify, you want to mix, you want to disperse, if I said to you, can you stir some sugar into my coffee, please? You wouldn't say, sure, hammer the ice pick and start stabbing it. No, you'd do something far more controlled. You'd take a spoon. You'd have less energy. You'd gently stir it. That is the equivalent of using a larger probe with a lower power, and you lower that energy intensity. Ultrasound is more than simply just dropping the probe in something and pressing start. It's about picking the right probe, the right tool for the job. If you have any questions about that, you know how to reach us. I hope you found that video helpful. If you'd like to discuss any of these tips or tricks, or even perhaps the possibility of borrowing or hiring one of these units for a couple of weeks, there's a QR code coming up on screen now, or you can click the link in the description below.